right, welcome everyone. Here is a look at Mastermind Creations Z-DEF. This is their reformatted 42 D-ZEF. I say Z-DEF, D-ZEF. Deathsaurus, Deathsaurus, however you want to say it. This is the, like I said, the reformatted. So this is the IDW comic version. You get this little bio card here with all the stats, the comic book / instruction manual. There's a few places in the instructions that get a little frustrating, and we'll talk about that when we get to those points. But just some places you need to be careful with the transformation. As such, because he's the comic-based version, he just comes with the singular little Sphinx / Griffin type breastplate. He doesn't come with the red eagle. Those can double stack on his chest in that robot mode. But there is a more G1 version coming with the bigger, solider wings. You can see these are kind of, they're based off the comic. You got some posable feathers there on the wings themselves. And he's sitting in a slightly, I can't get him to sit quite far enough back from the camera as I would hope, just because he's got these giant wings that kind of stick straight out the back of him. But yeah, so he's big space chicken mode. Very cool. He's got some little rubbery side fins that can collapse for transformation. His jaw opens. He can twist. You can kind of see that little groove that his whole neck can twist on, and his head itself is on a separate swivel right there. Jaw opens and closes. Ball joints at the shoulders. Dual hinged arms here. Little joint at the wrist. The little claws are all individually movable, which is neat. But at the same time, like this claw on this hand, I can fix that with some polish, but like it reaches a point where it gets really loose and just kind of sags. If I get all three of them lined up straight across from each other, it will stay in place, but once you move that one out of alignment with the others, it gets really loose and will just kind of flop there like that. A minor issue. I may even be able to just kind of squeeze that pin, but you can see just how loose that one finger is. He's got ratcheting hips front to back, a hinge out to the side, a thigh swivel. No ratchets in the knee, but a dual hinge knee that's pretty stiff. And then an ankle down here, like a joint here and a joint here on the foot. Poseable talon. The front part of the foot is on a separate joint. You can see the pins right there. And then the toes can splay. And again, this one, the outer toe on, this one's not too bad, but this outer toe, especially in robot mode, really likes to flop loose. And so sometimes you'll be sitting there and you'll see his toe just sticking out the side from the back of his arm when it's folded up. So it's slightly loose there. So a couple of loose toes in modes, but again, something that easily fixed with a, probably won't be like that on every copy. That's just how the pins were set in, and easily fixed with a little bit of polish. But yeah, he comes with several weapons that you can attach in alt mode. Here's his sword, and he comes with this little clip here that the sword just kind of slides into. That allows you to, if you want, attach to. You only got two. They all attach by pegs, and the only place there's a peg hole is on either side of his thighs / shoulders. So I wish there were a few more attachment points. The sword has an alternate attachment point. You can see there's two little slots up here on the back, right behind his head, that in robot mode, that folds flat against the back, and there's supposed to be a second sword adapter that plugs in there. Mine was missing that when it arrived. Like, I've looked everywhere. Like, it's not something that just fell onto the floor. It just didn't come with it. But there should be another sword adapter that works like this, but then it has two posts to slot there on his back in robot mode, which we'll show off when we get to robot mode. He also comes with a gun and a mace, or a spiked flail. I don't know where, oh, there are the extra pieces of it. So the spiked flail is a separate weapon here. On the original G1 Toys gun, it was a molded piece, kind of folded up underneath the rifle. And you can do that here. You can plug this, the instructions even show you. Put the handle right there, and I wrap this around here and plug it in like that. Now that's possible because, I just lost one of my lights. Anyway, that's possible because I took some links of chain out of there. Because one, I took this much chain out of the flail. You don't have to. It just comes and it's very long that even when he's holding this in robot mode, the ball just kind of sits on the floor. And if you saw any of my pictures on Twitter, you'll see it just hitting all the way down to the ground. This way, and there's no way to kind of, like, if you don't hook it around that front part of the gun, it sags like this, and with this attached, it sags by that much extra, which is just a little awkward. And two, he can't really, the way the fingers fit in here, if he's holding the gun in his hand, you can't really attach. You can make it work, but you can't really leave this attached anyway. So I just thought it made more sense to, one, shorten that, so when you plug it into the gun, you can wrap it around that front piece and have it more resemble the solid molded piece from the original toy. But you can also plug that onto his other thigh here if you want to store weapons, all of this stuff in alt mode. You can also go ahead and transform the chest plate, which is very simple. Close his mouth. He's got posable joints. Even his paws rotate. Hinged knees. Very posable little dude for having such a giant, like, square chunk of a body. But you just lift this up. This whole piece folds in. The tail folds up. And basically you just fold the rear section up into the body like that. Get that foot folded down here into there. And then you close that up, and then the paws fold down around here, and again rotate that so it points down and kind of fills in that spot right there, but it doesn't stick out. You can leave it sticking up over it if you want to, but it just kind of folds in and fills in that slot right there. Close that up, and then it's just going to peg onto his chest. And again, with the Gen 1 version, there's a red eagle that this plugs into, and then it will peg into the chest. They kind of stack, but you can, if you want, hook that in there, and these fold back just a little bit so you can have everything attached in alt mode. You also get a separate robot face. It's super easy to swap. It's just a kind of grimace face versus a smiley face or gritty face. But yeah, and then you've got the wings rotate up here. They rotate here. They rotate here, and then, like I said, these two middle feathers are on a single rotational piece, like they're attached. Actually, no, it's these two that are attached, but this one comes straight out of the thing, and then this one hinges up, this one hinges down, and then the smaller one hinges off of that, so you can spread the wings however you want. Also, be very careful when opening yours. If you look at the manual first, on the parts list, 2 tiny screws are not listed as parts included in the bag, but there are 2 little screws that you need to screw the wings onto these hinges. And they come loose in a bag. You also do get a little screwdriver to help you assemble them. But if you don't know they're in there, I lost mine. I looked all over the place for them. I realized, wait a minute, should I have screws here? Because these will peg in and sit there fairly securely, regardless. But you're supposed to screw them in. And I looked around, and my dog was laying on the floor, and she stood up, and they fell off of her. So they had fallen down onto the dog and were difficult to find. So do be aware, in one of the bags, there are 2 tiny little screws that you're going to need to attach those wings. So make sure you don't lose those when unbagging everything. To transform them into a robot, we'll go ahead and pull the weapons off. We'll go ahead and slide this little connector off. That already fell off. We'll unpeg the chest so we have some room to move, but there's this chest plate. We'll put that on in a minute. So to start off, the first bit is probably the most frustrating part of that, and that's getting this chicken head into the body itself, because these spikes have to go in just right to poke out through the back here. So you lift this panel up. These 2 little panels right here, these are the holes that the spikes are going to come through. So you have to lift these up, and be careful with these. Like, I haven't had any issues with them breaking, but especially as you get to the outer edge, this one especially likes to stick a little bit, and you can see it is thin plastic. So when you're moving these, don't grab it down here, grab it up here and kind of wiggle it all the way to the edge that way with pressure up here versus down here, because that could cause that to snap. But then fold these down. Then the whole head assembly here lifts up, it unpegs from the chest piece and slides back like that. And then this piece flips forward. Actually, lift that up. And then there's the robot mode head. And this whole assembly that the head's attached to comes undone, flips all the way up and around, and it doesn't flip on top, it goes back into these little slots here, like that. So make sure it goes under these pieces. And then the chicken head, so these rubberized pieces you want to fold up against the side of the head. And then up here, this whole assembly folds back. And then you've got to get, it can be tricky, because you have to have it bent just right. So these two spiked pieces here, make sure those match up. I already rotated the head around. Close the jaw and bring the head down like that. And then you got to open up these neck pieces here. These panels right here. So this can fold all the way back down and through. And you want to make sure you have it bent right and have the clearance so that nose just fits through there, the beak. And then you should line it up so that the head spikes come back through that hole. And this is not going in all the way yet. Oh, then, yeah, okay. And then you have to close those back up around the neck, and that will give you the clearance. So those need to come straight back through there. And like I said, getting it back out can be a bit of a pain because you need to make sure, because if the head starts to straighten up, it'll get caught right here. You got to make sure that neck is bent right. And if you put it in bent properly, it's a lot easier to get that beak past this little edge here when flipping it back out. So if you make sure that's folded all the way down against the lower neck piece, it shouldn't be as much of a hassle to get that head back out when transforming it again. Those are off to the side, and then that piece folds down over that spike and clips on, and that's where you can see that's going to sit flat against his back, and then that secondary sword handle piece will plug in on either side there and hold that sword on his back in robot mode. The tail, oh, so I forgot to show the tail here is articulated up and down here, and side to side here, up and down here, and side to side here as well. But we're going to go ahead and pop that out of there on those little tabs. Those tabs rotate. That's how it moves up and down, which is kind of cool. That's going to become the shield here in a minute. But anyway, once you've got the head out like that, and this whole panel just folds right back up, turn his head around to the front, and it just should just pop right back into there. Actually, before we do that, let's do this. These arms fold forward into this cavity and fold all the way up. There's a tab here that's going to peg into the arm, so make sure you fold that double hinge elbow up enough that those can fit in there and peg in. And then you rotate the claw around and it folds in, and the fingers kind of sit in that little groove there on the shoulder. Also, you can see this shoulder's solid. This shoulder has a cutout that if you look at it, it looks like something's supposed to slide in there, but I have no idea what. And I don't know if that's going to be like with the eagle chest plate, that there's going to be a piece that slides in there to make it look like it's kind of mounted on his shoulder or what, but it's clearly molded. There's nothing broken, but I'm not sure what that little opening on this side is. There's nothing that comes with this. Like I thought maybe it was for this piece of the gun to maybe sit there over his shoulder, but it doesn't fit in that slot. I have no idea what that's for, but maybe we'll find out on the G1 version. We'll plug that in like that, rotate that around. The fingers all the way up in there, and then we can fold this up. And it just sits there like that. The wings just kind of put them wherever while you're transforming it. Now down here on the legs, I'm going to bring them like this so you can get to this little piece right here. There's this little rotational piece down here that locks the arms in place. So when you bring these down, you tab them into the lower leg part, and then you give yourself some clearance here so you can rotate this to lock that in place. It's kind of secure without it, but it does help lock it, so you want to make sure that you get that locked in place or his legs will be a little bit floppy. Also, right here you can see there's a little button on a spring. That locks the arms up here in robot mode. The instructions, when he comes in robot mode, the instructions say unpeg and slide and rotate the arms down here on that assembly. Where is that section? Right here. Just unpeg, push entire arm downward. There is no indication that there is a button you have to press to unlock those arms. So they will, like if you just grab them here and I think, oh, they're clipped in, because it looks like it just clips into this peg, and you think, oh, it's a little clip peg, and you can grab this and just pull it down. It'll take a little bit of force, but it unclips, and you think, okay, that's it. This little but there's a button right here that releases it, And if you just pull it down without pushing that button, that piece is just kind of somehow amazingly friction held into this spot because it has to be a lever with the spring. And if you do that, this piece will just pop right off, which is what happened to me. I'm like, oh, it just needs to unpeg it. I'm like, what is this? Because at first I thought unpeg, it looks like that's a peg going into the body, which I think I would have preferred because I'd rather have that be a little loose than risk breaking it with this. So I was trying to pull it like this, and nope, nothing go. And I finally got it to unclick. And then this little piece, this little black piece right here, inside here with the button, fell onto my lap. And I was like, what is that? And then I saw the hole there, and I'm like, okay, it's a little cosmetic piece that may not have been glued in all the way. And then when I went to transform him back to robot mode, the arms would not lock in at all. So I found that little piece, and I'm like, okay, well, and then I messed around with it, figured out that it does have a little tab that locks it up here, and I'm like, okay, that came unglued. The glue wasn't strong enough. I'll fix that later, but it does mean that the one that's missing over here, it's not just a cosmetic piece. I don't know where this one is. I've got to find it. So because it was clearly on the robot when I got it, because they were not loose when I opened it up. Got down on the floor, started looking for this other piece, at which point I found one single little spring. And at that point, my brain said, okay, now I know how that mechanism works, but now I need to find a second spring and this other piece. And because it is a spring, the second spring was about 5 feet away from me, and this little black piece of plastic was about 10 feet across the living room. So when you get this guy and it says unlock and slide the arms down, move the leg like this so you can access that button back here. Right? It's right here. It's kind of hidden back here behind the shoulder and is not super obvious in the instructions. And then you push that button and it unlocks the leg and it moves very easily down to where it needs to go. Because if you're trying to force it, you're not doing it right. There's a hidden little button right here. You can kind of see that mechanism moving on the back of the arm. Make sure you push that. Like I said, it locks in place very securely, and then you push that button, it comes loose. So just be aware of that when transforming your figure. That was probably the most egregious. I wish that were done a little better. Either better instructions or just maybe a slightly easier step there. And so I apologize for going on about that for maybe longer than I should have, but I really want to emphasize you can break your toy, or I mean, like, it was easy to pop everything back together, thankfully, but you could easily lose some small bits that are important to having him stay together in robot mode, because if that's not there, the arms just sag. They will not stay in place. But then, bring the shoulders up, lock them in place, rotate them around here at the joint, open this up, and there's a little panel here. If you can't get the hand out on your own, this panel right here pushes in. It pushes out for alt mode, and when if you push that in, it'll pop that fist right out. And then you just open it up all the way up, slap that into place, close up the claws, and then you just fold the foot up into the back of the arm there. And same on this side. And this is where, like I said, that inner toe is, like, every now and then will like to just flop down like that, but you just push it back up. He's got individually posable fingers, which is really cool. You can go ahead and open those up once you get the fist out. And then the lower legs are actually fairly simple. Okay, so one, when you're folding him up into alt mode, these are the heel pieces. You can push them down further than this. You can push them all the way down behind that blue piece. I don't recommend doing that because there is a little slot here to kind of get a fingernail in and pull that up, but it takes a little bit of force to, these are nice solid heel pieces, but it takes some force to get that in there. And if you push it too far down, it'll go past this piece and you'll need a spudger or some sort of prying device to even get in there to get to this. It can sink too far down. So I like to push them around right there where they're filling in. There's nothing egregious. They're not sticking out, but they're still easily accessible because otherwise it can be a pain to get them back out without some sort of tool. But you flip those up. You don't have to flip those up yet, but just there. The lower half, these little pieces right here, panels just open up. And you can unpeg the legs from each other and rotate the whole assembly down and around. Now this has already come unpegged. There's a tab here when you bring that down. But when you're going to alt mode, make sure that there's a slot right in there that this gray piece tabs onto that thing. If you don't lock it all the way down, again, it sits there fairly securely. It's not going to be a huge issue, but it is supposed to lock in there. But bring the legs down, and you can just fold these panels back in to fill in that space. The whole foot assembly comes down like that. And again, that same tab that this was tabbed into, when you fold this down, will tab into the back of this blue piece. So bring that all the way down. And in this case, you do want to make sure to click that because that supports the whole foot moving together in on that tilt piece, as well as if you don't lock both of them down, one foot will sit just slightly off from the other one, and you'll be like, why can't this guy not stand straight? But yeah, and then you just flip this piece up into here, flip the toe forward, the heel out, and you got the leg done. Same over here. Bring this up, bring the heel out. Make sure that snaps into place there on the tab. And there you've got your feet done. And you can position the wings however you wish. And again, just there on the back, there's that sword piece. Or we're going to stand here. He's got the ankle tilt there so you can support him. Bring the wings back. Bring him just a smidge forward on his feet. Put the heel down. Get him to stand straight. Zoom this up here real quick. And then the chest piece plugs in right here. And there you have his robot mode. He's got a ball joint neck, ratcheting front to back. It's the same joints as the hips in alt mode. Same swivel there. The thigh swivel becomes bicep swivel. He's got wrist swivel. He's got those fully posable fingers. He's got a waist swivel. He does have, you can see the hinge right there. He does have a couple click, I think it's like 2 clicks, but he does have a ratcheting ab crunch there. Thigh swivel, ratcheting hips out, ratcheting hips front to back. All these panels move. Thigh swivel. Dual hinge knees, although even at the best they don't go up super far, but there is a hinge there and a hinge in the lower part itself. And then front to back on that foot, ankle tilt, and then you got fully posable toes and heels. So very secure, very solid. Like I've gotten him in some, you can get him in some really extended poses, and he stands securely. Like I said, you can swap out. He's got kind of a grin face. You can swap out this face plate if you want. He can hold the sword. He can hold the gun. This tail piece opens up into half. And because of the posability, you can arrange it however you want. It's not as one-piecey as the original G1 version, but turns into a little shield that you can plug into his arm. And again, the only connection points here in robot mode are those for anything that pegs in are those same peg holes up on what are now the shoulders. Like I wish there were some places to, like I wish I could maybe put the sword on his hip somehow or whatever, but that's what you got. And again, like I said, the rifle, you can kind of jury rig it. If you attach it first, you can kind of arrange the fingers where you can get this to stay on. It'll kind of sit at an angle like that, and it's kind of wedged up against the fingers. But you can give him his rifle. To hold the rifle, you do got to get the finger down. Like actually, to hold the rifle or the sword, you have to make sure that thumb is. You can rotate it forward, but that thumb has to be folded down there because otherwise you won't have enough room to get the tab in to the hand. You can see because it sits right there on his thumb, and with the thumb up, you just couldn't do it. The gun is more finicky than the sword. For some reason, the tab just does not want to. It takes 3 or 4 tries to get it to sit all the way flush into his hand. It likes to want to keep popping out. That could just be my copy. But once you get it in there and get the fingers wrapped around it, it stays in just fine. The little flail you can just kind of put in his hand and wrap the fingers around it. And like I said, I took a significant, there was this much extra chain, and almost double what's there now. And so otherwise it would just kind of hang on the floor. That at least looks kind of cool. It's still got a little bit of a sway to it. And again, you can shorten it to however you want just by pulling out links of the chain. That's where I put it because it can attach to the gun like the old toy had. And the sword, the same thing. The sword has a little tab on it that, again, you will need to have the thumb down for it to fit. But you can, because It just fits over that thumb ridge. But you can, once it's in, you can bring that thumb back up. You can bring it forward at least, so it looks like he's holding the sword. But yeah, it's a really nice figure. Like I'm looking, like the Z-ZEF, the G1 version again is mostly different colors. It may have a different head sculpt. The body looks to be mostly the same body. You will get the second chest master there, as well as like the different wings, and it is a darker blue, darker reds. More, I think the gray is more silver. We'll see all that when it comes to it. But there's D-ZEF in, you want to say D-ZEF or Z-DEF, and it's D-ZEF in robot mode. And then just a real quick comparison here. Here's him. Here he is with Optus Pexus. And while he's a couple inches taller, but there's just all around a lot more mass. He's much larger than Optus Pexus, even if he's not, much taller. Although he actually, for some reason when I was taking pictures last night, I'm like, I feel like he would be bigger in relation to Optimus, but he actually is fairly sizable, even next to Pexus. But yeah, it's really solid. It's really good. Be careful with the screws when you open it up to make sure you don't lose them. And do be very careful with those shoulder pieces. I would have liked, like I said, I would have liked just something different going on there, because, or more clarity in the instructions, because it does latch very well, but at the same time, forcing that latch, it did not take much force to, one, bring them down, and also pop that piece right out. So like the longevity of that mechanism is a little bit of a concern versus like just a tab that could have pegged in up there. But as long as you're aware of it and make sure to use that button every time, you shouldn't have any problems. That's my only real concern with this, is that, there's not clarity on how that button mechanism works unless you watch a video review like this or have seen somebody do it. So just be aware of that. Anyway, there's D-ZEF. He's very cool. He's very imposing, and I really like the look of him. Like I don't know if I really became attached to the character through the years, because like didn't really know about him when I was a kid when G1 was coming out, and I know he's shown up in the IDW comics. I don't know that I attached to him as like a really cool big villain. But he looks really cool, and like I'm happy to have him. Like I didn't know that I was looking forward to this guy until he showed up on the porch, and I got him out of the box. And I'm like, this is actually pretty impressive, and I'm happy with it. Anyway, MMC Reformatted number 42 D-ZEF. Very cool, very big. Watch out for their shoulders.